Hi, you're very welcome. This is a rerun or re-record of the pivot table snack session that I did last week. Essentially, there was a few kind of technical glitches with it, so I just wanted to kind of do a re-record so that you get the full value from it. Okay. Again, this time I've actually set my clock, so it's just me here on my own. And we're just going to kick it off, and here we go. All right. So I'm just going to begin by giving you a quick overview. Begin here. Okay, let's kick off the show. Okay, so this is a pivot table, not a pivot. It's all about pivot tables, and it's what I call my 20 minutes of Excel goodness. So, is it a table? No. Is it a pivot? No. And where this comes from is those of you who watch Friends, you may be familiar with an episode where Ross is trying to bring a couch up the stairs, and at every corner he would yell, pivot. So, no, that's not it. But what it is about this section today is about pivot tables where you can summarize your data using Excel. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Okay. A little bit about me. My name is Anne Walsh. I live in the west of Ireland. As I like to say, next up Newfoundland. My website is theexcelexpert.com. I've been a freelance Excel trainer since the mid 90s, as I like to say, the 1990s, not the 1890s. Written a number of books, Your Excel Survival Kit, Your Guide to Surviving and Thriving in an Excel World, second edition out soon. I also write a lot of books for Bookboon, create great reports in Excel, get and transform data, create great reports in Word even, and how to track your training records in Excel out soon. I also love movies, puns and crime fiction. Married for 27 years and I have one son who is a software engineer. I suppose for that one, you can blame his mother. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. What you were going to learn today. What is a pivot table? Why would you do it? And how would you do it? So just some other stuff as well. Yes, it will be recorded and sent out afterwards at the file, or in this instance, it will be re-recorded and still sent out to you at the file. The last in the current series, starting the new series in May, and I'll be sending you some details of that. And you can also ask questions in the chat, which of course is not relevant at this point because I'm re-recording in a different time. So what a pivot table does with data, it takes a whole bunch of your data here, basically converts it into gold or something you can actually do something with, or like say data is the new oil. Okay. So before we begin, certain assumptions. Excel assumes your data is clean and normalized. Okay. And as per last week's session, if you remember, no blank rows, no blank columns, consistent data entry, single cell headings and no totals. What it's used for: summarizes and miniaturizes your data. So it takes great big chunks of data, like I'm going to show you an example later on, which in that example has over 80,000 rows, and basically knocks it down into a nice tidy little table. Do you need to see the total sales by county, area, country? Yep, use a pivot table. Do you need to see the sales for a product analysed by time and category? Yep, use a pivot table. Do you need to see total sales analysed by customer and area? You've guessed it, use a pivot table. So a little bit more about if you're a newbie. If you're a newbie, if you haven't, wait for it. This took an awful long time for me to put together. A Scooby-Doo or a clue. Allow Excel to recommend a pivot table to you, insert recommended pivot tables. And Excel has a lot of features where it actually recommends things to you, and that's usually built on thousands of users, so it's well worth starting there if you're thinking I haven't got a clue. If on the other hand you're a bit more experienced, do it from scratch. And as I mentioned the last day, the idea of scratch comes from, apparently when people used to run races, they would actually sort of draw the start line with a stick across the thing, scratch it as it were across the track, and that's where the from scratch comes from. So let's have a look at the basic structure. Okay, you have once you've got your data set, you have your pivot table fields. The top half of the pivot table fields will have your headings, whatever your headings are in your data. Remember your single celled headings. Down here in the values, this is what you want to get calculated, is what you put in here. Up in your columns, you put in your headings from left to right. And then in your rows, whatever headings you want to go on the left, put those headings into the left-hand side. And then filters allows you to narrow it down a little bit more. Right. So what we're going to look at next right, is we're now going to look at what that looks like in practice. Okay, so let me just do my file here now, switch to this one. And my apologies if I look, you know, as somebody described me the other day, slightly exsanguinated. All right, my webcam died and I'm still waiting to get a new one. So we've got a new data set here, okay, and this is a nice tidy 80,000 rows. So if I go control arrow down, see there, all right, 85,000 rows. So it's a nice, decent data set. So I'm going to begin by converting to a table, insert and table. The reason I convert to a table is that it makes my data much easier to refresh later on if I need to do so. Once I got that done, so just a reminder, insert recommended pivot tables. And just to bear in mind, this may not give you exactly what you want, but it's a good starting point, always a good starting point. So for example, I'm just going to pick here, let's say sum of total, and I click OK. When I'm here, here's my newly created pivot table, and a little bit, I'm just going to write down recommended down here so that you know what it is. And a little bit more about this. I can format by numbers by going to value field settings, number format, and currency, and OK. And the reason I do it this way is that I just have to do them all. Just do one, does them all. And then I can do a right click and go to sort, largest to smallest. Right. There we go. We can see which is the largest one straight away. I'm going to do one other thing here as well, which I'm just going to add a slicer and a chart. So everything you need up here is going to be under pivot table analyze, or it might be analyzed depending on your version of Excel. Pivot chart. And let's say I might choose a pie chart for this one. Okay. And that kind of gives you, so that's a pie chart. And if I go up here to design, I can throw in a few percentages onto it as well. So you can see there, really each is the obviously top winner here. And then if I click on the pivot table again, up to my pivot table, analyze, and I choose insert slicer. And for example, I might say I'm going to choose it by category. Okay, so I can drag this over, resize it a little bit. That's okay, novelty shop, NA, and then use this to clear it. Okay, so if you're a newbie to pivot tables, that's a good place to start. Okay, the second option we want to look at is, let's say we want to do it from scratch, as I mentioned. Okay, so you go up here to table design, up here to summarize a pivot table, and you just choose the defaults, particularly in the beginning. When you're doing this in the beginning, just choose the defaults. So let's say I want to get analysis of my city. So I drag city down over here to rows. I want those to go on the left. I want to go to total excluding VAT down here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to throw the dates in here. Okay. And when I throw the dates in here, Excel automatically, you can see there it automatically kind of summarizes it by groups it. Instead of me just having the dates, it breaks it into quarters and years. Okay, so what I can do here is, let's say I can drag off the quarters, drag off the invoice date, and if I just want it broken down by years. And just a reminder, to format as currency, right click, value field settings, number format, click currency, click OK, click OK again. Okay, now I'm going to add two other things. I'm just going to add my slicer again. So click here, remember it's up here under analyze, insert slicer. Let's say I want to have it broken down by employee. You could have more than one slicer if you like, you know, this might have state and province. And if I want to reset that, I can come up here, change my number of columns, for example, to 5. Use that just to reset it. Widen it out a little bit. This one, and I might just leave this one as is. And then if I click on each of these, see there, I can kind of actually refine it like so. And I'm going to add one last bit then. I'm going to add a chart to it. Click on it, analyze, pivot chart, and let's say I'm going to pick maybe a clustered column. I tend to be kind of lazy and pick the thing kind of prompts to me first of all. And this chart is a little bit mad, so you might have to do a little bit here. Give it a second just to update and so on. Okay, and then you can just clear out your filter then here again. Now the last bit here, and I'm just going to put this, call this from scratch. is, if, for example, if we decide that we want to add more data to it, if I go back into my data set here, just go right down to the bottom, control arrow down. And because I formatted this as a table, if I go over here to the right hand side, you'll see there I have a little, you know, kind of a blue limit. Basically, your pivot table is built, goes to that limit. So I'm going to add in a new one here. I'm going to add in Galway. Okay. I'm going to add "Don't Get Me Started" mug. Don't get me started, as I've been known to say more than once. I'm going to add in a date. So let's say I'm going to put in today's date. I'm just going to use the same year. All right, I'll leave that as each. I'll leave that as 50. These are all kind of random, as I like to say, making up your numbers. And let's say 60. And let's say for employee, I'm going to put in Brian Cranston, because I do like him very much as an actor. And NA, I might put other. And for state, I'm just going to put down Connacht. Okay. Now, when I've done this, I need to go back into my Scratch. All right. And if I do a right click and refresh. So once you add any kind of data or make any changes to the underlying data source, you need to click on refresh to get it back in again. All right. So let's see now. So there's my friend Brian Cranston. There's Galway and there's Connacht. Okay. So that essentially gives you the main things that you need to do on your pivot table. Now, the one last thing I do want to do on it is I'm just going to do a little bit on this, the design of it. So I click up here, go up here to design, choose different designs here, click over here on this one for my slicer, choose this color green. And as you can see, you'd never guess it, but I do like the color green. So this is just enough, hopefully just give you an introduction to pivot tables. Like I said, it's a 20-minute gallop. This might even be a little bit shorter. And I'm just going to stop the share for a second. Okay. And what I want to just talk about is kind of like some upcoming courses that I have, and you know, so that you kind of hear about them as well. So let me just share my screen again. Okay, so here we have my upcoming Excel 20-minute snacks. The current series is over. I know you're all devastated, but it's okay. Take your time, have a cup of tea, recover, because I'm going to be back again in May. Okay, at the same time, dates and topics to be confirmed. I know, there you are, looking very happy. And if you're here, you'll hear about them. Okay, so basically, if you've attended it or you registered for this or you received this email, you'll hear about it. Now, the other thing I just want to let you know as well about is that I have, I'm launching an upcoming course called Excel for the Reluctant Learner, which is going to be starting in April. And these are the dates, the upcoming dates here. The dates might be slightly different when I actually send them to you, but no, we'll go with those dates. Okay, the time 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m, all done virtually on Zoom. Yes, they will be recorded. The cost is €210. I'm going to limit it to 15 people, no more than that. I need 10 to run it, and I've got 9 names already. I'll get your name on the list, the link, and further details will be sent in the follow-up email. Okay. And what we basically cover in that is going to be VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, if functions, conditional formatting. And I'm also going to do a little bit extra with you on a thing called Power Query, which allows you to cleanse data. So if you basically have to do the same data tidy up every month, this should be something that you should actually just have a look at. Okay. And I will send you a link to the page, etc., in the follow-up email. Okay. Now, I'm actually way ahead of schedule here as we stand. So I'm going to stop the share for a second and say thank you again. Apologies for the technical glitches on Friday. And hopefully this will make up for it. Okay. Mind yourself. Take care. Bye.